when it comes to not having an agenda when you do have one is quite difficult because you do have an agenda. You want to find healing. But it's not the particular frequency that's the point thing. It's the Father's intention that you agree with that brings about the change in your thinking from I want to be healed, I believe healing is for me, to I am healed. That becomes your reality, and you are in it, satisfied, content, even if you still have the symptoms, because the symptoms will follow your position of rest. So when Jesus said, pray believing that you've received, you will receive. So when you engage and you know that the Father's intention and who he is the healer, and you choose to align with that reality, then your body will align with your thinking. But you can't do it from an emotional perspective of need or being driven. You've got to accept, okay, the Father says healing is my inheritance. You start with accepting that, and it will become your reality before it becomes physically manifested. And when you are in that place where it is your reality within your mind, your body will align with your mind to make it so. And most people believe it when they've received it rather than before they've received it. And it works when you believe it before you've actually manifested it, because that is what brings the manifestation. And people get disappointed and all sorts. Well, the symptoms are still there. And it's like, well, I'm healed, but actually they're in denial in reality when they were, well, I'm healed. I said, do you still have the symptoms? Yes. Okay. So are you healed or are you not healed? Well, yeah. And you get all this sort of muddled mixture of thoughts and feelings around it. And I know when I speak to someone and they're not in denial, they can honestly say there are still symptoms in my body, but my body is aligning with how I think. And getting to the point of that is how you think, in that is your reality. And it's not, you can consciously choose to call that into being. Therefore, the frequency of your words will begin to vibrate your body into alignment with it when you're at rest in it. So a lot of people say, well, renew your mind. And they're going to confess the Bible. I'm going to confess this. And all they're doing is just speaking, but they're not actually renewing their mind, because you can't renew your own mind. You don't renew your mind. Your mind gets renewed when you agree with God's mind. We're all taught to renew our minds. Try and renew your mind by confessing the Bible or doing something so that you will eventually believe what you're trying to believe. And ultimately, you can't renew your mind with your mind in that way. You agree with God's mind, and that will bring about the transformation and renewing of your mind. It's a lot of stuff where we've tried to do it ourselves that hinders actually the manifestation of it. So it's getting that fine balance between my intention, I believe the truth, because it is the truth that you are healed, but it might not be the fact within your present situation. So when the truth is more true to you than the symptoms that you might still have, you find that is the point where things begin to change. Years ago, I had an ear issue with Meniere's disease, which was an inner ear imbalance, which caused me to have vertigo and all sorts of symptoms. And I went on a quest for healing. This is 1990s, early 90s. And I went on a quest for healing because I didn't know what I believed about it. I'd been prayed for many times and received healing. So I knew God could heal. I knew people could lay hands on me and I'd been healed. But none of that worked in this situation. And God was trying to get me to look at, what do you really believe about healing? So I did what I knew to do then. I went back and found every Bible verse on healing and everything, looked at them, discovered some things that were different from what I'd believed, because I was at that point in the point of believing healing was in God's kingdom and we were still in the now and the not yet of God's kingdom. So sometimes God would do that and sometimes it wouldn't happen. And it was like, well, that's not really helpful, because what if my time isn't the one that doesn't happen and I'm stuck? So I realized that no, God is my healer. It's one of his names. Jesus actually took my sickness, disease when he died, so I don't have to have it. That sickness died when I died with him. So why am I not just perfectly whole? Well, because even though I might actually choose to believe that, my physical body has to come into agreement. Therefore, some change needs to take place within my physical being to align with where I am in that place of rest, knowing the truth. Because the truth will set you free, and you have to know by experience. Now, that doesn't mean you have to experience the healing to know the healing. You have to experience what God says and where you are in the experience with God. So you are resting in that reality. It is the truth. There is no double-mindedness. There is no doubt, unbelief, anything. It is the truth. And no one could convince you otherwise, even the symptoms that you might still have. And therefore you are at rest in it. I'm not striving for it. I know it's the truth. That will bring about the reality that you know. But it takes some time to get to that point often, because we have to overcome the battle of the thoughts and the symptoms and the things and all of that to get to that point. As if, no, I know that I know. And eventually, after about 3 years of learning all about healing, learning about God, learning about what Jesus did on the cross, learning how that all applied, I got to the point where I was at rest in the fact that I never said, well, I am healed, as much as I was thinking that is the truth. So I'm going to focus on what is true rather than what might be the present fact. So the present reality didn't affect what I saw as being my true reality, which was to be whole, to be healed. And eventually, after about resting in that place for quite a while, I was in that and I was content in it. I was still taking medication because it was dangerous to drive, if you're going to get vertigo attacks and things like that. It wasn't pleasant meditation, but I was taking it. And one day I had the breakthrough in that something changed physically in that my ears, which were, I had deafness and tinnitus in one ear severely. And I could hardly hear anything other than muffled sound, and tinnitus was quite pronounced. And I was listening to some music I was in a conference, actually in a worship conference. And it was like, all of a sudden it was like, who turned the PA up? Because it was like the volume just went up, and I thought, wow. And then I sort of think, well, I don't think anyone else is noticing this. It must be me. And then I felt God say, now you can throw the medication away, and I did. Never took another tablet and never had another vertigo attack or anything else. And my hearing, was fine, but it took a number of years to get to that point. And then it took another months living in that point until the reality was there, and for me, it was a dramatic thing. It was like, bang, oh, it's done. But it's not always that way. Sometimes it's just, the process gets to the point where you just, oh, I can't hear anything in my ear anymore negatively, or my hearing's improved. And suddenly times it just creeps up on you and you find, and sometimes it's progressive. in that it gets better and continues to get better until it's completely better. Jesus sent the people to the temple, to show themselves to the priests. And it was like on the way it happened. They still had all of the leprosy while they were walking, until whether it got less and less and less until they were on the way, or whether they were walking and all of a sudden they just didn't notice and it would gone. But eventually they showed themselves to the priest. Or we know one of them definitely did, because he came back and said, thank you. We're not really sure about the others. The others may have been healed, they're just not bothered to come back and thank Jesus, or they may have not, because on the way they may have had doubt and unbelief and not followed through the process. Who knows? But we know definitely that the one person did, and he was able to show himself to the priest, and the priest pronounced him healed or whole. So it takes time. And no one can really determine exactly what the process is for every individual, but it does work. If you enjoy these videos, would you please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe? It really does help. Thank you very much.